Well, that was some game to kick off the T20I series. It was more reminiscent of India v Australia. There was a heated discussion on an intense debate and what will be a conversation that we will carry forward, not just on this post show, but perhaps for the next few days as well on the concussion substitute. India have eventually taken the game by 11 runs. You have to say that a mix of Ravindra Jadeja with the bat and his subsequent concussion substitute, Yuzvendra Chahal, with the ball had a significant impact in the outcome of that game. On ESPN Cricket for Matchday, Gautam Gambhir and Tom Moody will look back at it. Let's go one by one. Gautam, really entertaining game of cricket. Well done to the bowlers on defending it. You called it at halftime that you felt India had the runs, but we have to start by just discussing the concussion substitute.
See, it's difficult. Obviously, it's the match referee's call as well. What he thinks about it, that's more important. And I know that Justin Langer will be unhappy because obviously Ravindra Jadeja was batting, and at the same time, obviously he had some hamstring niggle as well. And then actually getting a replacement, someone like Yuzvendra Chahal, who's probably a very very good T20 bowler. So it obviously makes things even worse for Australia, and it did because the kind of impact he had in the second innings was obviously huge from the India's point of view.
You're almost trying to hold back your smile, aren't you, about this? Because we can see the funny side to this. If you are an Australian, you may not. And let's be fair. Let's put in all seriousness that we hope that Ravindra Jadeja is fine, that there is no implication of a concussion injury. Tom Moody put out an interesting tweet that it wasn't that the concussion protocol, that the concussion substitution was invoked, but that the protocols on being hit, Ravindra Jadeja being hit, weren't necessarily followed. Tom.
Yeah, look, my issue is more about the protocol. Once a player is hit in the head, and this is obviously post the tragedy with Philip Hughes, who lost his life, and the protocol is very clear. Once a batsman gets hit in the head, the doctor, the medical team comes to the ground to make sure the player, for one, is clear and okay to continue. Two, that his helmet is okay, and more often than not, they replace the helmet because the manufacturers of the helmets can't guarantee there aren't fractures in the helmet itself. So none of that took place. Now, to me, that is, number one, a concern. Now, we also got to appreciate this is not Jadeja's fault. You know, we don't know this, but he may have also had delayed concussion. So there may be a situation where he had delayed concussion, which is absolutely, possible. And I don't have any issue whatsoever with him being substituted for Chahal because, yes, okay, they're different types of spinners. You could argue one's better than the other. But at the end of the day, Jadeja was selected in the side to bowl 4 overs. So you have the right to replace him with a specialist spinner. So I don't have an issue with that either. My issue is more around the process that wasn't taken at the point of Jadeja being struck in the helmet. And if that was done and done professionally like it should have been done, we wouldn't be sitting here having this argument. We'd be, understanding that, this is a possible delayed concussion. Look, it's a coincidence he's got a hamstring niggle as well, but we need to worry about the welfare of the player.
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing, isn't it, Gautam? That the fact that his hamstring was being attended to could have possibly irked the Australians even further, and that, like Tom said, that the concussion wasn't necessarily looked at immediately. We have to, again, like Tom says, put down that there could have been delayed concussion. But can you understand the disappointment of the Australians?
Yes, I do. But then, yes, there could be a delayed concussion as well. And we did mention about during the halftime break that whether Jadeja is going to come back and actually bowl his 4 overs, which is going to be very, very crucial. But if there is a concussion and if there would have been a concussion and there is a concussion rule, why not just use it? And India used it to the best of their advantage, having a wrist spinner, which we kept talking about. That I hope India does. That we hope that India doesn't miss the wrist spinner. And actually, they didn't miss the wrist spinner. He had a huge impact on this game. So if there's actually a concussion, so fair on India to use that.
And let's just clarify that as per the concussion substitute rules, you have to get in a like-for-like replacement, which essentially goes down to the role that the substitute player would have performed in the remainder of the game. So it is perfectly within David Boone's authority to allow for that, given, like Tom Moody says, Jadeja would have bowled 4 overs of spin, and another bowler who will bowl 4 overs of spin is therefore deemed a like-for-like substitute. You don't need to look at the batting between the two, given the remainder of the game issue, right? So let's go down to the impact Chahal did. Yes, Tom, please.
I just want to add to that. What would have been interesting if Jadeja was concussed on the field if they fielded first, would Chahal be the person to replace him as the batsman at number 7? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's the anomaly of this. The remainder of the game thing. It's easier to do it for a like batsman, but I do
want to make my point really clear. My issue is not around the player and the concussion. My concerns around the player, and I hope that Jadeja is okay. My issue is the fact that it wasn't addressed immediately by the Indian medical team when it needed to be, because that is protocol this day and age.
And it would be fair to say that even if there was delayed concussion, that doesn't change the fact that it still should have been addressed when he immediately had a blow on the helmet, right, Tom?
100%.
All right. So there you have it. I'm sure we'll hear more from the team management. There's also an interesting tweet put out by Dan Brettig, our man in Australia, that given the next 2 T20Is and the next 4 days, if Jadeja does have some form of concussion, then you would assume that the next 2 games are too early for him to actually come back. So keep an eye out on the Jadeja situation. First and foremost, we hope that he's fine. He's played a heck of an innings, and we'll come to that in a bit. But we will talk about Chahal, the bowler, now. Let's leave the concussion bits out. We've done that to death. It did have a big impact, didn't it, Gautam? Aaron Finch was off to a good start. He looked like the big wicket to get. Steve Smith, after that, in a chase of 160, is a massive wicket, and Chahal has single-handedly started that slide.
And we spoke about it before the start of the game as well, that how important Chahal is in T20 cricket. He's probably a much better T20 bowler than a one-day bowler, because you just play in his hand. He knows what to do. He knows how to bowl those defensive lines, how to shut the over down. He knows how to attack as well, how to take wickets. So he reads the game really well, especially the T20 game. And especially when he's bowling after the 6 overs, there was always this thing that he's going to take wickets. And once he had someone like Aaron Finch, and then obviously it was difficult for Steve Smith and the rest of the guys to take Chahal on, because it's a bigger ground, plus the wicket was dripping as well. We saw how Zampa bowled. So he's always a threat in a T20 game, because he bowls those wide lines, he bowls those googlies against the left-handers, he bowls those wide lines against the right-handers, so he can actually spin the ball both ways. So it was always difficult, and we saw that how difficult it was for someone like Darcy Shaw, because you expect a left-hander to take on a leg spinner. Yeah. That is what a left-hander's job is, to take on the leggy. But he couldn't, because Chahal kept bowling those wrong ones outside the off stump, and he just didn't bowl in his radar. And that is how important Chahal is, especially in this format. So I would definitely pick him in every day in a T20 game.
Yeah, that's the other point, isn't it? He should have been playing in the 11 in the first place, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely should have been playing, and we did mention that. We also mentioned the fact that, you only have to look at the history of T20 cricket and look at the leading bowlers, and the majority of them are wrist spinners, leg spinners. The interesting thing with Chahal is that he is in his sweet spot in T20 cricket. And the reason for that, in my view, is the batsman is dictated by the pressure of the scoreboard, the pressure of the run rate required. So it allows Chahal to be clever to bowl, to make it very difficult for the batsman to score. But if you give Chahal the ball to bowl a batsman out, when there's no pressure on the scoreboard, it's a different bowler, it's a different contest. So the shorter the format, where the scoreboard pressure is there with run rate, the greater bowler he is. So that's why I think maybe in 50-over cricket, he's not as dynamic as he is in 20-over cricket, because obviously being a more condensed game, there's greater pressure on the batsman in those middle overs to, push the scoreboard along.
He has grown into like Tom says, it's a sweet spot. He's in red hot form. He's grown into a different caliber of a T20 bowler, hasn't he, Gautam? A lot of leg spinners, captains would think twice whether they bowl to a left-hander. You've played, some of you, Yuzvendra Chahal, from the time that you did to now. He's a different bowler, isn't he?
So again, I think you can be defensive in T20 cricket and still take wickets. He's not Rashid Khan. Rashid Khan can get you out on your defense. But if you see Yuzvendra Chahal, he hardly gets you out on the defense. He actually gets you out when you're looking to take him on, because he knows how to bowl those defensive lines. He bowls those tight lines, and he never looks to take wickets in a T20 format. He only looks to bowl those dot balls. And that is the advantage of having someone who actually can bowl those defensive, who can bowl with a defensive mindset and can still take wickets, because you know that the batsman's going to come at him. But yes, come the one-day game where there is no pressure, batsman has no pressure to take you on. He can actually play you. He can actually hit those gaps, and you have to literally get a batsman out. Then he's a completely different bowler. So Yuzvendra Chahal in a T20 format, and that is the difference between Kuldeep Yadav and Yuzvendra Chahal when it comes to one-day cricket and T20 cricket. Kuldeep still needs to learn how to bowl those defensive lengths and defense, how to shut that over. He will always be more successful in one-day cricket as compared to Chahal, who's got to be much more successful in T20 cricket because he has that mindset, how to stop those runs and pull those economical balls.
Natarajan's story continues, Tom Moody, and I'm sure you take some personal satisfaction in watching it grow. Fine IPL, impressive ODI debut, though it was challenging in the first bit, and an even more impressive T20I debut. He had a pretty big say in this game as well.
He certainly did, and it is pleasing for obviously him and the whole of India that someone with that backstory is doing so well. The most impressive thing for me is not so much how he's bowling and his ability to bowl Yorkers and his change of pace. We all know that he's capable of doing that, but it's a different story to be able to do that on the big stage. Have you got the temperament? And that is the big gap between club cricket, first-class cricket, and international cricket. It's all around temperament and character. And a lot of players fall a wayside. They've got the skill, but they don't have the temperament or character. And what Natarajan has shown us so far in the two games that he's played is that he has got that temperament and character to be able to withstand the pressures of international cricket. And that's a real feather in his cap. And it's a brilliant thing for India going forward to have a left-hander that can provide what he provides, because it just, with him and Bumrah as the potential finishers in the T20 World Cups coming up, it's something to look forward to.
When we saw Natarajan in the IPL, Gautam, you felt like his best chance of getting a wicket was at the death when batsmen are taking him on or when he's bowling the Yorkers. That wicket to Glenn Maxwell, it must have been very pleasing for India, for Natarajan, that he's got a well-set Glenn Maxwell early, and it's not with the Yorker. He's almost in some ways beaten him for pace.
Absolutely, but you haven't seen him actually bowl with the new ball as well. If he can actually start bringing the ball back in, he's going to get even more tougher to face. A left armer who can bring the ball back in. If you see in a T20 game, he bowled the fourth or the fifth over, which is always difficult. And then if you have someone who can actually bowl with the new ball and can swing the ball back in and can bowl as well as he's done in the death overs, it's a great luxury to have. Any seamer who can bowl 135 plus and can get the ball back in, Tom knows it, how difficult it is in any format of the game against the right-handers. So yes, if he can work on that skill, he'll become even more dangerous, even in one-day cricket. Because one-day cricket, you need to swing the ball back. It's not about T20 cricket where you can bowl those defensive lengths, because you've got to be able to get the batters out with the new ball and actually get them out probably either on the defense or caught behind and stuff. Yes, T20 cricket, yes, if you're a very good death bowler, you can actually be utilized as a good T20 death bowler. But yes, that Glenn Maxwell wicket will definitely give him a lot of confidence, because he actually was beaten with pace and ball didn't came in, but it looked like as if it came in. But then, yes, if he can bring the ball back in, he'll be a very, very good asset for Indian cricket.
Australia just missing a little bit of firepower in the middle, Tom. If Maxwell does go early, does that middle order, low middle order, who's the kind of confidence that can chase 8, 9 and over? Yes, they're missing a few key players. Is that an area as well that they'd like to look at?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be reading too much into either team's performance when they're resting players in preparation for other series. Yes, you can take positives out of it, but I wouldn't be overly critical, because the batting order for the Australians looks very different if they had everyone fit, and the same for India. Their batting order and their bowling would be much the same. So I think, yes, there's learnings. I think more importantly, both teams, the management and selectors, will be casting an eye over just how certain players adapt. And we talked about Natarajan adapting really well. Another one who I thought bowled really well was Washington Sundar. So that's another one for India, just to keep in the background, knowing that he's got the big game temperament. He's a good option for them. And as we've said in the past, if he can continue to develop his batting, well, who knows? He may be an option to be able to fit into that top 7 and provide some batting strength.
Now, as it turns out, the official man of the match has gone to Yuzvendra Chahal. I was wondering if it would be Jadeja for his runs with the bat and taking India to score plus 160, or Chahal for that 3-4, or whether they could split it, or maybe the two of them should split whatever they give the man of the match or men of the match these days. Gautam, was the bigger impact to Chahal with the ball, or was it Jadeja to first and foremost get India to 160 plus?
Jadeja, because at one stage when Hardik Pandya got out, we thought that India might just get restricted to 140, 145, but it was sheer brilliance from Jadeja that we could manage to get 161. So you got to give it to Jadeja because Yuzvendra Chahal had runs on the board to actually bowl at. Had
Yeah.
India been restricted to 140, 145, I don't think so. He would have had that big an impact what Jadeja actually had in the first innings. I know that he took 3 wickets, but purely from a point of view because he's got runs on the board. So I would definitely feel that Jadeja had a much bigger impact as compared to Yuzvendra Chahal.
Maybe they've given it to Chahal just to annoy the Aussies even more. I don't know who picks these things, Tom. Gautam said
Yeah.
through the IPL, get the opposing coach to decide man of the match awards. I wonder what Justin Langer would have said today if you asked him to make that call.
I honestly reckon the adjudicators have done that just to stir the pot even further. Even though we've sort of got our head around, and understanding, what's gone on here, the majority of people are going to be kicking this around for a long time. But I agree with Gotham. At the end of the day, Jadeja was the man of the match. That was a brilliant innings that rescued the side. And again, who's to say? He may have bowled just as well as Chahal. He had that opportunity taken from him because he was subbed. So he only played half a game, and he did that better than anyone.
Yep, fair enough. All right, we'll have to keep an eye on to see whether Ravindra Jadeja has any extended injuries or any repercussions of that concussion. Second T20I in a couple of days' time. Big thank you to Tom Moody and Gautam Gambhir. Plenty more from them as this T20I series has only just begun. And do catch us for pre-match analysis of the second game in a couple of days' time. There'll be clips and highlights from this largely entertaining first T20I on ESPNcricinfo.com, as well as the mobile app if you're watching in the Indian subcontinent. So make sure you watch that. There'll be extensive coverage on the concussion substitute rule, the debate surrounding. I'm sure the Aussie camp will say a thing or two too. So we'll have you covered until the next game. Until that second ODI, which moves back to Sydney, from all of us, it's goodbye.